Hello.
Hi, we're thrilled to have you here, Jason. It's Jason Perlman, Perlman, no A, just
Thanks,
so you
Deborah.
know. And Jason has over 50 years of tennis experience that he's going to share just a little bit of with us today. And I wanted to ask you first off, what are your earliest and most favorable memories about tennis?
Well, thank you for that, Deborah. That's very kind of you. And yes, this has been a lot of tennis balls flying back and forth over the net for me. I wish I had a penny for every tennis ball that I've struck. My earliest memories were in Miami Beach, where I grew up in 1967. My older sister Robin threw me in the back of her Cougar XR7 and said, "We're going to play tennis." So it was on Biscayne Bay, which is a lovely place to be, right on the water. And a guy that my father knew, I can't remember his name right now, owned, I think, four tennis courts, and they were right on the water. And my sister Robin is instrumental in getting me into tennis.
Oh, good for her. Well, we're so glad that she did. I understand that your USTA membership number that you received in 1970 is,
Don't use that number.
well, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, is quite low. And people don't believe that it's actually your membership number because it's in the thousands.
In 1970, my father, who was doing quite well at the time, said, "I'm going to buy you a lifetime USTA tennis membership
Oh
and no
my
membership dues
goodness.
for the rest of my life," which is kind of cool. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Oh, and your father has such an interesting story too, because he was a lawyer, an entrepreneur, a World War II veteran. And how did all of that background lead him to Caesar's Palace?
I don't know how somebody who can steam hot dogs and beer buy Caesar's Palace for $60 million. You got to steam a lot of hot dogs and beer, as they did in my father's first restaurant. It's called Lum's. So it's all due to the magic of franchising. So if you've ever, I'm sure you know what that is, and people know that you get dues or fees from every location that you open up, and an investor comes in and buys one of these franchise locations. And the name of the restaurant was called Lum's, Lums. Started in 1956, and a couple of years later he said, "Why don't we steam hot dogs and beer?" And I guess, I'm not sure if you can still get a DUI by eating these hot dogs, but that was the magic that led him to over 400 Lums locations, franchises,
Oh my.
and allowed him to go to Las Vegas. He wasn't
Las
looking for
Vegas.
Caesar's Palace at the time. He was there for completely other reasons. Somebody came to him and said, "Guess what?" He said, "Yes. Caesar's Palace is for sale." He said, "Why not have a lunch and go meet with this gentleman?" So I think his name, Jay Sarno. They had got together and said they put a deal together. My father got a loan from the bank in Las Vegas,
Oh my.
and the rest is history. $60 million, and the hotel was only 3 years old at that time, and he
Oh.
took over in Las Vegas at the helm. So during the '70s, I got to stay in a lot of nice places, and especially the penthouse at Caesar's Palace.
Oh my. And tell us about one of the matches there, one of the most famous matches between Jimmy Connors and Rod Laver.
My father had an idea, and I don't know what kind of help he had with that idea. He said, "I'm going to put on a big time tennis match at the hotel." And in 1973, he said, "Who's out there? Who can we get?" Well, two names came to mind: Rod Laver, the legend from the '50s, '60s, and everybody knew who he was, and a young upcoming upstart named Jimmy Connors. So
Oh my.
he put up the money for the match. It was $100,000, and they made it a winner take all.
Oh.
So an exciting time. They got together. They did battle on an indoor court at Caesar's Palace. They had constructed the court contiguous to the hotel. And Jimmy Connors came out on top of Rod Laver that day and won the $100,000. And that match can be seen today, not in its entirety, but a snippet of maybe 10 minutes on YouTube. So type in Connors Laver, and you will see that match.
Oh, I'm going to do that. And also, your father was instrumental in taking Caesar's Palace from a very well known domestic location and catapulting it into an internationally known venue.
Yeah, in 1969, Caesar's Palace was kind of small compared to today's standards, maybe 500 rooms. And by the mid 70s, my father had taken it to over 1,500 rooms. and brought in a lot of gamblers and junkets from Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and now you had the whole world coming to Las Vegas to gamble and to see this hotel, which eventually, what I consider is one of the most famous names in hotel or casino history. When people think about Caesar's Palace, that's one of the first names that comes to mind, and all due to what he did bringing in people from Asia. And of course, you know that there's other events and things that he worked out. We'll talk about those hopefully.
In the future.
Yeah.
Yes, like boxing and other and in the parking lot, and starting off in the parking lot with a bleachers and people watching tennis in a parking lot. What a showman.
Yeah, the events from the early 70s to the late 70s, eventually he was out by 1981, but you have the boxing with Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns,
Oh my goodness.
James Bone Crusher Smith, to name a few. All of these boxing events were mainly his idea. Boxing, auto racing, Paul Newman auto racing in the parking lot, the tennis match, and eventually, actually the year before, 1973, with Jimmy Connors and Rod Laver, he started something called the Alan King Tennis Classic, which I'm sure a lot of people will remember that name. So he got together with Alan King and says, why don't we put on a tournament here? And my father, who loved tennis, he was moving away from golf at that time because he said, a golf match takes 4 or 5 hours, and I don't have that kind of time to play golf. So by the end of the 60s, he gave up golf, took up tennis, and through his love of tennis, he started this tournament at Caesars in 1972 called the Alan King Tennis Classic, which eventually was the largest tennis tournament west of the Mississippi River for like 10 years. People like John Fitzgerald, John Newcomb, Jimmy Connors, Rod Laver, just Raul Ramirez, Eddie Dibbs. The list goes on and on and on of people that played in that tournament and thought it was fantastic.
Oh, well, we're so glad that he gave up golf for tennis. It worked out well for the
For
tennis
sure.
world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And your story is certainly not bad for a young man, as I understand it. At 16, was a waiter in the Sky Lake Country Club in North Miami Beach. And you got your start there playing on the red clay courts. Is that true?
I was into tennis for maybe 5 or 7 years by then, but I wasn't doing anything after my sophomore, junior year in high school, and my father said, you're going to work at my club. So, yes, I did bus, and I didn't bus, I waited tables at the California Club, formerly the Sky Lake Country Club. So for people that were in North Miami Beach in that time, the 70s, they'll remember the Sky Lake Country Club, and now called the California Club. It was a great time, and a lot of tennis went on there too.
Oh wow, what great stories. And the YouTube we can see is Clifford Perlman, chairman, and that would give us a brief glance into some of these events.
Yeah, Deborah, there's about an 8 or 9 minute video on YouTube, and it's just, anybody who sees this video, they feel great about it afterwards, because it's just a rush of events and things that were going on at that time. So go to youtube.com, type in Clifford Perlman, Perlman, chairman. The video at the top has Alan King's picture on it, and they click on that, they'll get the whole video.
Oh,
and
terrific.
just a fantastic 8 minutes to watch. I mean, anybody that's ever seen it has come back to me and said, Jason, wow, your dad's cool.
Oh.
So it's a fun thing to watch.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you could be with us today, and we'll do this again soon.
Deborah, thank you so much. It was
Thank
great to be
you.
here speaking with you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.